fact where the victim is now the perpetrator and the perpetrator is now the victim. And that just drives me crazy.
Hi, this is 30 frames a second. Nat's not coming out today. Two of us broke out of the control room. This is Women Breakout. We have today my co-host, which is Veronica Kitt. She's the producer of VK Report, also the founder of the People's Film Fest. And I'm Sheila Berry. And our outstanding guest is a surprise to all of you. It's just a great pleasure to have the daughter of Walter and Reverend, let me say that again, Walter Harding and Catherine Harding, none other than Dr. Quida Harding. Hello, Quida. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
And we want to talk about you today, and we want to find out and pry into your life and your career. I would like to know, first of all, growing up and going to school over in Glen Rock, every time I think about it, I think about those Flintstones. And growing up also in Harlem at the same time. What was that like?
It was two different worlds, growing up in Glen Rock, New Jersey, and Harlem, New York. Two different worlds, two cultures, but wonderful. Wonderful resource, wonderful way to get to know and understand people. My parents moved to Glen Rock simply for their education. Glen Rock was then and still is in the top 10, I should say about the top 3, 4, or 5 in the nation. Also, living in Harlem so that we would understand our culture, understand our people, understand that it's important to know how to adjust to any situation. And what I didn't say to you is during the summertime, we lived in the South. And so my parents' thing, if we could say that, was that we would be around different types of people all of our life, and we needed to know how to get along.
What part of the South?
Arkansas, Alabama, North Carolina, and South Carolina.
Wow. Now, how did your musical career start? Let me rephrase that or go to a different direction of that. We know that your dad, and I can call him my dad too, the great Reverend Walter Harding, did so many things, and he was a great inspiration in all our lives. But your mother was special too. And she did a lot of great things, and she was very instrumental in your musical career. Could you tell us about what she did when you were small? I like to hear you talk about that.
I was 4 years old when, no, let me back up. My mother said I was 6 months old, and she would hold me when she played the organ. And I can say that my first lessons came when I was 4 years old. My mother was my first teacher. And then in Central School, there was the music teacher, her name was Miss Whitehouse. Met my mother. In fact, that was my first ride home from school by a white woman. And she brought me home, and she said to my mother that she wanted to be my teacher. And I think she was my teacher until I was in the 7th grade. And then she went back to my mother and said, I can do no more with her, but she doesn't need to stop now. And they allowed me to study with the person who was very renowned, and he traveled back and forth to Italy every time he turned around. His name was Manfred D'Elia. Oh. And through Miss Whitehouse, Mr. D'Elia and the Ridgewood Women's Club, and I think the Glen Rock Women's Club, I was afforded a scholarship to complete my musical training. Mr. and Mrs. D'Elia was the first interracial couple I ever met in my life, him being European, she being Japanese, took care of me musically, socially, and they loved me and my family.
So can we go back for a moment? At what point did you realize this is what you wanted to do? Because a lot of times when you have young people, their parents says, okay, you're going to learn the piano and pop your head and, you know, if you don't do it right. But something had to register for you to say, I want to do this.
When I was in the Army.
Really? Oh, so then from age at 4 when you were doing it, you were just doing it?
You did what your parents told you to do.
But the people saw something. They
my
saw
mother
a prodigy.
and my father.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, prodigy. Yeah, I was at Carnegie Hall.
Wow.
Carnegie Recital Hall. But you do what your parents tell you to do.
Right.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But it did not register here.
Yeah.
Until I was in the Army.
And what happened there?
I decided I didn't want to be in the Army anymore. And I said to the Lord, I said, you know, Lord, if you just make me an offer I can't refuse. I want to do this. I want to work in music and music as a ministry for the rest of my life. And the opportunity came. I fell in a foxhole and hurt my back.
He took you out.
For real?
Yeah.
So you have to be specific when you ask the Lord for something. I wasn't really hurt too bad because in the military, one of the standards is you have to be able to pass the PT test. And I couldn't run as fast. And if I couldn't pass the test, I didn't want to do anything that I knew I was going to fail in. And so I was able to get out.
Wow, that's good. And so then music.
Yeah.
Came right after that. That
yeah,
was it.
And you know, it always has been, because even in the military, I had commanders who were musicians. And whenever we got together, Harding, come on, be a part of this. I was offered to work in an Episcopal chapel. And I didn't want to do that. But it was a good experience. I didn't last long.
Right.
But all these little things that started happening started making sense.
Wow.
Yeah.
But what was it, because that really came together for you? Because listening to your music, actually filming your music, I mean, everyone knows I do camera as well, among a whole bunch of other things, but you actually integrate different genres of music where people don't even realize that they are being fed somehow, and you're tapping into their soul at the same time.
Well, the only thing I can say is that my mother said to me, because I was not allowed to play gospel music until I was 12.
Really?
Or 13.
So you were playing just
classical.
Nice.
I'm classically trained. And my mother said to me, she said, do you realize that you intertwine your classical training in your gospel playing? I said, no.
Wow.
And so a lot of the things that people even come up to me today and say, I can only thank God, thank the kind spirit for that, because I can't answer that question.
Wow. That's a gift.
It is a gift.
That is a gift.
Yes.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Army. What was your top rank?
The hard questions.
Your top rank. I want you to tell it. We all know it is, but
I
tell the
retired
audience.
as a major in the Army,
Nice.
but I started as a private. And there's a difference. There are the type of officers that we call shake and bake. They have not gone through the experience of having been enlisted. Enlisted meaning private and private first class, sergeant, before you go into the officer ranks, because they don't understand the enlisted way of thinking.
Right.
They come in demanding, and you're going to this. And I wanted to be an officer. And when I was asked why, I said, so I don't come off like you all do. Because you all think you're better than we are.
Right, right,
when you get out on the field, it doesn't matter if you are a general or a private. Whoever knows the way out, get me out of there.
Exactly.
And so I went through, I went into the Army as an enlisted personnel, and I came out as an officer, because I just wanted to make a difference.
Wow, wow, that's powerful. Because I think about, I have a friend that actually came in, she had an education degree, and she came in as a lieutenant. But that experience wasn't there, and that foundation is
The
so
foundation.
important.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Yes, it is.
yeah. So I understand exactly.
Do you feel you got all that you could have gotten out of the Army, as the commercials say, be all you can be?
I got all I could get out of the Army before I went in.
All right.
If you had my mother and my father, then you were trained before you went in.
So you enjoyed the Army?
It was a break.
Oh.
The Army, and you know, and it's funny because so much resistance as being Major Harding. Till sometimes when people call me Major, it hurts, because I've had to fight so many people in our community by being Major Harding. When I would say Walter and Catherine were Major and Colonel and General Harding.
Amen to that.
Army,
I know that.
The Army tamed me.
Wow.
Pulled me back.
And saved. Maybe.
No.
No.
The Army just taught me how to tone it down. I learned how to say no without guilt. And I really learned how to work systematically in an emergency from the Army. That's it. That's it.
Wow.
Attitude and all of that. The Army calmed me down.
Nice.
My parents were my disciplinarians. If it were not for Walter and Catherine, I never would have made it.
Wow.
Never. And I tried to get out. I called home. I said, Daddy, I want to come home. He said, well, stay a couple more days and see if you can do it. And if you can't, well, then that just means you can't. I don't like the word can't.
Right.
And so what I did, I always read the rules. Rules are guidelines. And instead of going in for a full career, I was able to extend 2 and 3 years at a time. And that's how I did the 26 years.
Wow. That is amazing. That is amazing.
Thank God.
But how does that transcend into music? How did you allow that to transcend? Because I think there may be, well, you tell me.
Well, you know what, you're saying that. I remember, after I got out of officer candidate school, I was selected to go into what we call the Army Medical Department. It was a prestigious and elite section of recruiting. I was not recruiting the people out of high school. You had to have a skill to go after doctors and people who were already professionals. Why would a professional person want to come into the military?
Gotcha.
So I was one of the few selected to do that. And I used to ask, why am I doing this? Because it was at that time when I was feeling, I really want to be in church. I don't want to be doing this army stuff. I want to go to church. But a lot of the things that I learned, I find myself doing now. How to plan conferences, what to do when you do that, how to relate to people on a professional level, and how to bring them into what you're doing without making them feel as though they were strangers. You know, in the Army, if I go, you go. If you go, I go. We were taught the buddy system. You do not do anything without that person being with you. You watch out for that person.
Wow.
Well, Mama and Daddy gave me the charge. You're the oldest in the family. You watch out for your sisters and brothers. And when Daddy died, my mother gave me 4 popsicle sticks. She said, break them at the same time, and I couldn't. She said, now break them by themselves, and I could. She said, you stick together.
Wow.
So all of that
Yeah.
feeds into when the Lord allows me to play.
Right.
Include everybody in.
You know what's so beautiful? What you're saying is the fact that a lot of times people resist the Army. Oh, I don't want to go in the Army. You know, I don't want to go. They don't hear what you're saying because you're speaking it in a really extremely positive tone. And what I'm hearing is life skills that you were able to adapt in your personal life, and it's something that I think a lot of people are missing. They're looking at the whole political, social aspect of Army, you know, and those choices.
Well, you know, I think people would be surprised at hearing me say this, but I believe that our young people, just as you have to register at a certain age, I believe every young person should go into either military or Peace Corps or something that will structure them.
Right.
The Army will give you structure if you don't have any.
Wow.
I was able to recognize it. I went into the Army to avoid really racial discrimination.
Really? How so?
Well, when I graduated from high school, I wanted to get as far away from Glen Rock and New York as possible. I wanted to get as far away from anyone named Harding as possible. And I went to Albany State College in Albany, Georgia. I did not realize that I was a black woman until I went to Albany, Georgia. I mean, a little thing, couple things in Glen Rock, but not enough to make a difference. Because believe it or not, a lot of my Caucasian friends, they were my friends. And if they didn't like me, they didn't like me. We didn't play the game. You either did or you did not.
Right.
But once I got to Albany, Georgia, it was like, Yankee, go home. And, you know, you're not supposed to be here. And what are you doing down here? So all of that.
In your face here.
Yeah, all of that. And I left college. Well, see, okay, Mom, if you're watching this, you're going to find out. I was in a band in college. We were the pre-show for Al Green, Betty Wright, the Detroit Emeralds. If you go on YouTube right now, there's a song by Syl Johnson, Any Way the Wind Blows Is Cool With Me. That's my group in the background. And we toured the Chitlin circuit. But after a while, we had the opportunity to go to the White House. And our manager made it so we couldn't go. And then we had the opportunity to be the house voices for Stax Records, you know, Isaac Hayes and all of them. And our manager wouldn't let us be a part of that. And so we decided to quit. One of my friends went into the Nation of Islam. One of them became a nurse. I came back home. And from that, I learned how to do certain things based on the fact that I didn't need to be around doing nothing. I wanted to finish school. The Army was the best way for me to go. And I went into the Army not knowing what I was going to get into. I just knew I had to get out of Albany, and I was not going back to Glen Rock, and I was not going to go back to Harlem. So whoever was going to take me first, the Army recruiting station, the Air Force, the Navy, Marines. So whoever was going to take me first, that's what I did.
Right, right. Wow. Cool.
Well, you did a lot of things, and I cannot let this show go on without mentioning what a great teacher of all ages, but I'm going to talk about the children. You have trained so many children without knowing and made a difference in their lives. And 20 years later, they go into organizations like Mama Foundation, great musicians, through your teachings, just out of the sheer joy. Matter of fact, my niece is one of her products.
Wow.
She used to hold as a baby. We'd sit her on Weeda's back while Weeda's playing, and she would listen, and she became a lover of gospel music. We would go around singing or to programs, and I can call her name, Larissa would be right there. And when I looked around, she didn't make a big deal out of it. She was all through Quida.
Wow.
My mother loved Quida so much, she'd send a different messages. I'll never forget that.
That must have been awesome.
And Quida was, I'm calling her by her first name, that's not nice. Dr. Harding.
Yeah.
Dr. Reverend Harding.
And I want to go into that before we talk about the books. On your ordination, and how did you have to go through that? Why weren't you ordained in New York City?
Miss Berry, I was not ordained in New York City because the pastors here did not see what the Lord showed me. Our association was not ready to tackle what to do with the minister of music. And everybody does not see your vision. And so Reverend Errol Gilliard, Reverend A.C.D. Vaughn, who was a past president of the Hampton Ministers Conference, had a conversation with me. And Reverend Vaughn said, you know, it's time that we did this. But I must say that at a picnic in July of that same year, the pastor of St. Luke Baptist Church, Johnny G. McCann, said, I support your vision.
Beautiful.
And then he did not want me to get discouraged because he said that the Baltimore pastors are quite progressive. Lester Taylor was another person who supported, Reverend Lester Taylor from Community Baptist Church in New Jersey. And the person who gave me the greatest challenge, I mean, he and I, we just wrestled academically and theologically about ministers of music and their position. His name is Pastor Keith Owens. Preached my ordination sermon. Right. And so the reason it wasn't done in New York is because New York wasn't ready.
We're speaking of association. What is your opinion, or what's missing? Is something to me I feel like it's missing. What is your opinion of what's missing from the Baptist Ministers Association today?
Well, there's the Baptist Ministers Conference, and then there's the United Missionary Baptist Association. Which are you speaking of?
United Missionary Baptist Association.
What's missing from, oh, you really want to ask the hard questions. This is the hot seat. What's missing from the United Missionary Baptist Association? I think I can answer that with authority. Based on the fact that my dad was one of the charter members.
Yes.
One of the things that is missing from our association is unity. Another thing that is missing is love. Another thing that is missing among the association, in my opinion, and I've been in it all my life, is outward encouragement among the pastorium, among the parishioners, among the people who are in power. I just need to say so. And it's just not my opinion, it's just that sometimes you need to try to diffuse when people come at you with certain questions harder than the one you just asked me, because you find yourself saying everybody does not see the same thing the same way. And you have to give people a chance to operate the way that they see it. Because just like a lot of people did not see what God gave me, well, what God did was move me from one point to another, then people have to be patient with those who are in leadership, because they're fighting battles too. Sometimes you don't know who to trust or how to trust. And so to those who have asked me, give our leaders a chance and let them prove themselves worthy or not worthy. But instead of sitting and judging them, see how you can help. And if you cannot help, do what I did.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you.
That does make sense.
Yes, it do.
If you can't help, get out the way.
So you later on you went into music ministry leadership. This is what you're teaching. And this is what inspired you to write your books. Could you please expound on your books?
Well, the Choir Call book came out as a result of something that I did when I graduated from seminary. My Master of Arts in church music was fueled by the craziness in church music ministry leadership. Reverend Preston Washington,
yes, the late
was the person who said to me, Quida, you don't need to go anywhere but here to find out what's wrong in our community. And so what I did whenever I would come home, I would gather, people would say, Quida, come on, let's do something. Do you have anything? You know, let's just do something. And I started putting things together. Choir Call was written based on something that happened to me at my cousin's church. People would run up into the choir stand at any time and do anything in the choir, and so I decided to make it real. How do we look to people who are unchurched? How do we look to people who come to church to relieve their burdens? And I made a skit for the choir so that we could see ourselves.
It's the Choir Call, a new approach to an old problem. Workshop and training guide for the ministry-minded choir member.
Yes.
It's so interesting is that they had fixed my choir with Hayden and Michelle. They
from
were
California.
going around to the different choirs and they were fixing the choirs basically, and it was really focusing on what you were saying, the leadership.
After she wrote that book.
After she wrote this book, maybe everybody should have had a copy of this
That's
book.
Well,
right.
there could be a difference, because my whole thing is, unless a choir's, why do we sing in the church anyway? And I asked the question, I think I put it on Facebook, can we please sing about God? Can we please praise the Lord? Can we please do what we're supposed to do? It's not about us. And a lot of our choirs are entertainment driven now. Has nothing to do with God.
You know, it's so powerful that you said that, because I watch Sunday's Best, one of my favorite, and when they are speaking, a lot of times they, when they're judging the contestants, they say they don't see the spirit or see how they identify or connect with their audience, but the spirituality is missing because they're entertaining. They're detached.
Well, sometimes I question that, because what you're looking for, if a person is anointed and they can sing and they're not marketable, they're not going to win Sunday's Best.
Wow.
Okay. About the second book, you wrote that. Did you write that after you got your doctorate degree? Your doctorate? And did you get your, question B, did you get your doctorate degree? Because I want to throw that in, from Morehouse, where your dad graduated from.
My seminary degree, my master's degree, is from Morehouse School of Religion, which is part of the Interdenominational Theological Center, which goes back to how my parents brought us up, because ITC is made up of Baptist, Church of God in Christ, CME, AME, Presbyterian, United Methodist, Episcopalian, and Catholic. And so we will go to our own denominations to learn about our own polity, but when it came to things like music, worship, field training, we trained together. So this here is, I do not have a doctorate in music, as so many people think I do. My doctorate is in worship studies. I am from the original Doctorate of Worship Studies program, the Robert Weber Institute for Worship Studies out of Orange Park, Florida. This is the first part of my dissertation, developing new standards for key music ministry leaders in the Black Baptist Church. Because the Black Baptist Church, we are self-contained. We govern from within. No one tells us what to do. But we have no standards. And it's so funny that the thing that is the oil in our worship, the music, has the least amount of standards. And it's not really the music that is the problem, it's the music leaders. And so my thing is, if we can get the music leaders on board with the pastor and the vision of the church at large, then everything else should fall into line.
It's too bad that we don't have enough, time, because we can go on and on.
We can, because I haven't even scratched the surface right now.
Dr. Quida Harding is coming back on another date. We'll have a live audience. And we'll do question and answers, a whole different type of show that she's coming back to do. But I want her to update us on what she's doing now, to close out, to sum it up, where she's going, and to tell us, well, I have to let it out of my mouth. I can't let you tell
What?
Sissy Houston!
Well, by the time you see this, I've a dream come true. Sissy Houston has asked me to accompany her to the Bahamas.
Oh my goodness.
I'm going next week. She is going to receive one of the awards. She has been chosen as one of the women of distinction, along with Winnie Mandela, the lady who plays Anika, I believe, on Empire. And I'm going with her.
Oh my goodness.
I received another call today from the Morehouse School of Religion, and they are asking me to bring my music ministry leadership program to Morehouse so that people don't have to go to conventions. They can train at Morehouse, and the people who don't have the money to go to seminary can take this course at Morehouse. And you know what? I'm going to tell them yes.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm sorry to Sister Houston. I should have said Dr. Sissy Houston. Oh, I'm so sorry. Forgive me. You know I'm the one that the elevator don't leave. Remember me, Sheila?
And I just finished a documentary with I had some students come in from Korea. They wanted to learn about the real gospel music. And as we close, I think we're forgetting that gospel is the news of Jesus Christ.
Yes, it is.
And I think that's where we can end, and that's where we can pick
Thank
up.
you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
Oh,
And
thank
I
you.
am so honored to have you here. This is truly
This is an honor for me.
and rare. Very
Yes.
rare. So
Very rare.
We are blessed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The Lord be with you.
the soul is covered with guilt from sin and wrongdoing, the mind and the actions of the person reflect the condition of the soul. So to free the soul, or the essence of man, from its burden, one must acknowledge one's wrong, but then one must
presentation to bring you the following. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan recently posted several controversial comments on his Facebook page. The first of these comments read as follows. There comes a time in a people's life when they have to take the quest for justice in their own hands. What is the quest for justice? If the government of America will not protect our lives, if the government of America will not intervene to see that black men and women tried in white courts will receive justice in accordance with the law of the land, and they will not allow us to separate and build a nation of our own, then we have no alternative but to fight to the grave and take them down with us. Let's look at the second. This October will be the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March. We're going back to Washington. The first time we went, we didn't bother with the government. The theme was atonement, responsibility, and reconciliation. We atoned to God and to our women for not being the men that we should be. And the third, fearlessness looks like insanity to a coward. And with that said, let's continue on with our video presentation. Here is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Let us receive it.
We need land.
So we're going back to Washington this time. Elijah Muhammad said, one day I'm going to call them up. He was looking at the silliness in our faces as we were marching like we're going to a party and a picnic. Justice is no party. Justice is not a picnic. When you want justice, you got to be willing to do what it takes to get it. We have a government here that is supposed to fight
For our lives when their citizens take our lives.
Eric Holder said, well, with Darren Wilson,
We just couldn't reach the threshold
to charge him. And then he turned around and sent a report scathing that the police in Ferguson were giving black men and women tickets, forcing them to pay for little teeny things that helped them to be able to pay their bills. And the city administrator, after they made several $1 million off of poor black people, said,
next year, can you get 10% more?
it's on you. How long can you take it? How long will we take it?
See, I want to go to Washington and I need your help. I want to go
To put the Muslim program
before Congress. I want to go because we built this country, our sweat and our blood. We paid for every square inch of it. We fought in the Revolutionary War. We fought in the Civil War. We fought in the War of 1812. We fought in the Spanish-American War. We fought in World War I. We fought
in World War II. We fought in Korea. We fought in Vietnam. We died in Iraq and Afghanistan. For what? Not anymore. Let's put something before this government. The theme is justice or else.